Hello there, Salim Omar here from the eCommerce Money Map podcast. I've got a special guest with us. Her name is Dylan Jahraus. Dylan, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Salim. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited. I mean, you have $1 million Etsy, you're $1 million Etsy seller. You took things that you learned from your career in e-commerce, and then you've used it to grow your empire. And then using the same principles that brought you Etsy success, you've created a coaching program, a course where you're teaching hundreds of Etsy sellers how to be successful on the platform, from startups, wannabe entrepreneurs, part-timers to I think what you said earlier before we started, full-timers that are doing multi-million dollars in revenues. That's pretty amazing.
Yes, and this wasn't intentional to get into this Etsy business, but my whole background was corporate e-commerce, and I ended up marrying someone in the military, and then moved to San Diego. And there's not a lot of e-commerce here, so started an Etsy shop. Let's see, this was about 7.5 years ago now. And things just snowballed from there. It's amazing when you have a background in corporate America, you can really apply those principles to entrepreneurship, to your own e-commerce venture, and see pretty consistent results. That's exactly what I did. Now that's what I teach people.
Got it. Yeah. So you had many options. You were working in the e-commerce industry and in e-commerce business, and I think you've got some really big clients that you worked with. If I remember your background, the Zappos, was it one?
Yes, Zappos in Las Vegas, and delivering wow and happiness. Tony.
Yes, yes. Tony Shea, and I love that book, Delivering
Yeah.
Happiness.
Yeah, and that was that's where I got my start in e-commerce after business school, and then moved up to Seattle and worked for Zulily, which is now dissolving. But the flash sale model was very interesting, 10 years ago.
Yeah. How did you decide Etsy? Why Etsy?
Yes. Man, so we moved from Seattle and I was side hustling. I was doing eBay. I was selling things on Craigslist, on Facebook Marketplace, and I threw one thing up on Etsy, and 2 months later it sold. And I thought, oh
Hmm.
no, now I have to fulfill. Like, I wasn't
Hmm.
necessarily planning on that. But it was just one of many channels that I was going with to earn some extra money. Yeah.
Hmm. Now you just went full-hearted, full force into Etsy, or you were kind of working in a few channels.
Yeah, so once I really then focused solely on Etsy, got rid of the eBay thing and selling locally, and just focused on Etsy. By the fourth month there, I was doing over 10,000 a month. And it really just snowballed from there. But I didn't know the potential when I first listed something on Etsy. I just did it haphazardly,
Hmm.
keywords, didn't even think about SEO. And because I underestimated it. Yeah.
Hmm. And so you liked Etsy worked for you. Is it right for everyone? Who is it right for? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of YouTube videos about Etsy in regards to selling through print on demand or digital products. A lot of people know Etsy can be for that, as well as, of course, the handmade categories where people are making things at home. What it is not for, though, is certain drop shipping categories. You've got to be really careful there because there are rules and regulations on what you can and cannot drop ship. So, but there is a very interesting category that's undersaturated that you could do drop shipping with, and that's the supply category. So that would be like craft supplies or things for events or occasions. That also fits into supplies. So if you are someone who's not holding inventory, that would be the way to go. Print on demand, of course, you don't have to hold inventory. And I would say Etsy is great for people who maybe don't have as much capital going into something.
Hmm.
Unlike Amazon, you don't have to have all this PPC money ready to go. You don't have to do ads. You have actually free built-in traffic from the marketplace. And there's many other ways to compete on Etsy. So if you don't have a lot of money or you want to have low financial risk when you're starting, Etsy's perfect for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Would you be willing to share how your from starting to where you are now? See, I think you said 7.5 years, and you've gone seven figures. Like how slow or how quick was that ramp up to seven figures and over for you?
Yeah. So for us, it was six figures within the first year, multi six figures added, at least 100,000 every year, basically. That's kind of how the ramp up was. At one point, we were doing over 300,000 and I made my first hire. And that's really what lifted the earning potential because I became the constraint of the business. So
Mm,
once I started hiring, that's when the ceiling was really lifted.
mm. How did you feel about all this? Like coming from a corporate background, and there's a number of people listening, watching this that are in corporate,
Yeah.
and entrepreneurship is scary. And then you kind of start a business, right? You start your own, you become your own entrepreneur, and you're seeing success. How is it? How are you from a mindset standpoint?
Yeah, I'm kind of like a pedal to the metal kind of person. So if someone gives me a car, I'm like, how fast can the car go? So I don't like the constraints of corporate America.
Mm,
My my goal was to climb the corporate ladder and then maybe go into e-commerce consulting when I was 40. Well, I went into business for myself when I was about 27. So much, much sooner. And I would say it's scary to leave a safe job. There's
mm,
definitely golden handcuffs in corporate America, but you are so limited. Financial freedom, time freedom, like you don't own that. You really don't.
mm,
If you're willing to take a little bit of a risk and do both at the same time, start your own thing while you're working full time, replace your income, and then fully shift into working for yourself. I think that's a really smart way to go nowadays.
right. Yeah. Yeah. There's no looking behind once you kind of cross that bridge of becoming an entrepreneur. It's so much it's so exciting, it's so exhilarating, coming I've been an entrepreneur for the last 27 years, starting my own accounting firm and then a couple of other businesses.
Yeah.
And it's right for some people though, I mean, if you're really into having that, wanting that security and that, then it's it can be challenging.
Right. Yes. And it's definitely, but I do think you also become a little bit resilient and more
Mm,
callous, where you can tolerate um, more unknowns. Um,
mm,
and really, I would argue that working for yourself, being an entrepreneur, you have a lot more control than working for someone else. Work ethic goes a long way. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but if you're
mm,
willing to be relentless and do what others, aren't willing to do, you'll get results that they won't get.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, what's been really helpful is I've always been part of a coaching group, a mastermind, and I surround myself with like-minded folks in every stage of my entrepreneurial journey. And I bring this advice to folks that are watching and listening this, that don't do this alone. You
Mm.
know, there are people that can support you. In entrepreneurship, it's lonely at the top. It can be lonely at the top, and you don't need to be, right? So having like-minded people where you're getting ideas and you're sharing and you're learning and getting inspired by others and having an opportunity to share challenges that you're facing as an entrepreneur. I mean, I that's been really important for me.
Yes, right. And um, people like who are in the corporate world, they don't quite have the same experiences to share, and maybe not, they don't relate in the same way. I remember I joined it was like I spent $20,000 to do this. It was a weekend mastermind, and my husband actually pushed us to do it. I was like, I can't believe we're spending this much money.
Hmm.
But we got into a room with 20 other business owners who do 1 to 10 million. And I had never been in a room like that before, but it just opened my eyes to the possibilities. Um,
Hmm.
I think being in a room where you're not the smartest person in the room, you haven't gotten the farthest. Being surrounding yourself and forcing kind of those situations and those, what for me, it was kind of uncomfortable. I'm an introvert, but those networking events where you can learn from other people, like that's what's going to really stretch you. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Um, how is e-commerce different? on Etsy than other platforms? Give us a few kind of pointers on that.
Yeah, so the Etsy customer is completely different, and not many people are educated on this. It's completely different than the Amazon customer. It's completely different than a Shopify customer. What's great is, Etsy customers, they come to the platform to browse, to buy. They, unlike Amazon, where you might say, "Oh, I got this from Amazon," it's I got this from this specific Etsy shop. So you really can build a brand there, and customers become brand loyal to brands that are
Mm-hmm.
within Etsy. So you also own your policies, which is incredible because you don't have to accept returns, exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
You own your policies, unlike Amazon, where you can get really just killed. Your margin can just get crushed by certain returns,
Yeah.
and you own your policies, and the customers respect that more.
Mm. And so because you can build that brand loyalty with your customers on an Etsy store, how do how does that what does one do? How do you show up? How do you do that? How do you build that loyalty? And what are you doing on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis to do that?
Right. So I really like to talk about the invisible playing field of customer service. So you own that entire customer experience with Etsy. There's customers, they expect communication with the seller. So with Amazon, when you order something on Prime, you're not expecting to get some personal message thanking
Mm,
you, like, wishing you well, and educating you on how to use the product. But with Etsy, you can create that entire customer experience with each transaction. So it can be much less transactional. It's important to remember that. Don't approach Etsy like you'd approach Amazon. Um, Make sure that you have those touch points, and also get them off of Etsy to your social media. So we're really focused on organic growth through social media, connecting with them, nurturing your customers with Instagram, Facebook. You can even do that with YouTube, TikTok, of course. Um, there's a lot of opportunity to do that.
nice, great. So I'd like to change and segue into barriers that e-commerce business owners have. What are some barriers, mental, physical, cash flow, in any of those realms that somebody who's early on in the Etsy, in the Etsy store that they're faced with that you help them, and then we'll go in the more established in your $1 million students where you help them overcome their barriers. So let's
Yeah.
start with the kind of the people newer to the Etsy store. What are some of the barriers they have?
Yeah, the biggest issue is trying to figure out what to sell, trying to decide what to sell. And then you see people just kind of revert back to selling what they like. But the problem with that is, who are you selling to? Do you really want to sell to someone exactly like yourself? Are you the most profitable customer that you could be targeting? So instead of deciding who to sell to, we teach our students to instead of deciding what to sell, we teach them how to decide who to sell to. So we help
Mm,
target profitable customer segments who have maybe higher discretionary income, but really more consistent spending habits. And then their income will become much more consistent. So we show them how can we serve them, for at least 4 to 7 years. We're focused on lifetime value of the customer. And that's where we start with everyone. But that solves really the biggest problem that most new sellers have, choosing what to sell.
mm, got it. Yeah. And what about the established ones, folks that have done a certain revenue size, but they kind of have a glass ceiling above them, and they're like, they just can't get above it.
Yes. So we work with students who do up to 8 million per year on the Etsy platform alone. Sometimes they'll also be on many other channels and do wholesale and everything. But I would say the biggest issue that we have seen with them, especially since 2020, would be inconsistency. And their sales were great in 2020. Maybe they even started their business around that time. And at that point, there was the stimulus from the government. The checks were flying
Mm,
to Americans. Most Americans were receiving those almost every week, and they were spending that money on Etsy. Like I, whether it's right or wrong, they were spending the money on Etsy, and that I would say, it didn't spoil Etsy sellers, but it created an illusion that it was going to be much easier to be consistent. And now, with inflation and everything, it's harder to be consistent. So you have to do different things. You have to deconstrain the business in different ways. So what we do with them is we identify all the different constraints. what is preventing them from 10xing what they're doing now, whether it be, bandwidth or people or, equipment or things like that. And then we also help them retarget more consistent customers. So maybe they were targeting the wrong people who aren't as consistent. Yeah.
Nice. Good. Really, lots of good information, value that you've shared with us, Dylan. Really appreciate that. What are, as we come to the tail end of this, what are a few things that have played an important role for you in your success?
Yes. I would say that, especially with things you'll hear about e-commerce now, a lot of people will sell this like get rich quick scheme, passive income, that whole idea. But really, a long-term business, it's not going to be get rich quick. So lengthening the time horizon, not trying to see results tomorrow, but thinking, okay, year out, that's, I think, really key to have that expectation. And that'll also give you the endurance that you need. Because anyone can do anything for a month or two, but the people who stick it out beyond that, they're not seeing results. They, push past the dip. It's one of my favorite books, The Dip. They push past that dip and they get to a place that most people quit before they get to. So that is really important. Just a mindset to have when you start, and treat it like a business from day one. I think a lot of people just, they don't set up the infrastructure correctly, and it can really cut the lifespan of business short. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you've got two successful business, your Etsy store, and then you've got a coaching, training business. And I believe you're a mom of one boy.
Two boys, yeah.
Two. I think I saw one on your website, but two. Yeah, that's great. How old are they?
2 and 6.
Okay, so look, you've got a young family, you've got a husband, and two businesses. How do you, like, and I want you to give advice to those that that have a 6-figure, a 7-figure business, and they're trying to juggle so many things, and the to-do list is so big and they just can't seem to get it all done. What's your secret to how do you manage it all?
Yeah. I got some great advice from a mentor of mine, Alex Hermosi, last year about building a team. And that is really what it is. You got yourself to the point you're at, but you will not be the one to grow it beyond that. It is the people around you. So hiring the right people, hiring that people that know things that you don't know, especially in the executive level positions. Those are not positions that you want to just hire your brother or your sister or whoever is closest to you in proximity for, because in order to really grow beyond where you've gotten it, you've got to replace yourself with people who are more skilled, more experienced, and bring something more to the table than what you did. Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with good people, with a strong team.
Right.
And you've got you've built a team, and it's not really a one-person job, is it? To build a successful company, it needs the teamwork. Right. And it needs, I think, leadership is, important in how we treat people and all that. And those have been kind of a journey for me personally, is learning all that, treating people the way they want to,
really?
That keeps them there, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Being a place people want to work. But also when you are keeping things lean, which I think is really important to keep your fixed costs, low, as long as possible, to, make sure that everyone on the team is pulling their own weight too.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Dylan, as we finish off, if folks want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, well, we are all over the internet. We are on YouTube, just Dylan Jahraus on YouTube. You can see a lot of our content. We put out 2 videos every week. We have our podcast as well, which is connected on all the platforms. And then Instagram is, I'm there every day. If you want to see real behind the scenes of running 2 7-figure businesses with 2 little kids and a husband,
Hmm.
You'll see it all there on Instagram.
Great. Awesome. Super. Folks, go and check Dylan out. Dylan, this was so good. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for imparting all the wisdom you did. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me. We'll do it again.
Sounds good. Great. Enjoyed it. Bye.
Bye.